Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Today we jumped over to the mall, or near the mall, in the Annapolis Exchange Parkway, and we are here today with Julianne Bing and Karin Tator, who are the owners, I guess, of a new business in Annapolis called One You Love Homecare. How are you guys?
Hi, John. Thanks for having us.
We're doing well.
Well, you know, what we want to do is we want to get into about the business. I said it's new, and I mean, you've been around for a little bit. You know, I've talked to several different, we'll say, aging communities, and I mean, you see them popping up all of the time. I mean, probably the biggest one in the news is the Crystal Spring turned into the Village at Providence Point, and I'm somewhat coming to my own realization that I'm not getting any younger myself. So, and having dealt with aging parents, this is just a huge, you know, One You Care home care to have home care, and we wanted to stop in and see what it was all about. So where did this come from? I mean, what's your background on taking care of folks? Now, I mean, I'm assuming this is for senior care.
It is, but we actually can provide care to somebody, say, with a disability, multiple sclerosis or cerebral palsy, so the age can actually go younger than just our senior population.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. And presumably from the name of the business, it is in-home.
It is in home, but the home can be defined not necessarily just in the physical home where they were living for 50 years, but it can be in an assisted living community, or CCRC we call them. That's a continuing care retirement community like Ginger Cove or the Providence Village that's coming, to keep them in their home of where their home is.
Very
so it
cool.
can be an assisted living or in the independent side of one of those.
Okay, well, it's so important, I think, to keep people in their comfort zone, if you will. And I know that I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, you know, she said, oh, yeah, I'm hitting the big 6-0. And I said, you know, 30 years ago, we'd be out buying walkers for you. And
It's true. Very different today.
And, you know, we got into the whole discussion about if George Bush can skydive at 90.
Right.
And, you know, my father has passed away, but I mean, he was traveling into his late 80s. So we are, as a human race, I guess, are aging a lot slower maybe, and we're just staying active a lot more. And I think it's probably because we realize about eating healthy and being healthy and all that kind of stuff is really adding to it. You know, that's so important to be independent as your own. My mother, you know, she passed away as well, and the last thing was the car. And you know,
they hate to get rid of the car.
Well, she had dementia, and she said, we said, Mom, we got to sell the car. And she's like, oh, hell no. And we said, no, we really do. And she fought on it. I mean, she didn't drive it. And I said, okay, well, we took the battery. She had the keys, and she thought she could go wherever she wanted, whenever she wanted. And she had no problem telling that. And when we ultimately did sell it, when she passed away, the guy's like, what's wrong with this thing? It won't start. Oh, that's right. We don't have a battery. we got to put the battery in it. It's fine. But, so, you know, the independence is huge. And I think it's a much needed service that you guys have. But how did One You Love Homecare get started?
Karin and I grew up in Annapolis. We knew each other. We went to high school together.
What high school?
Severn School.
Okay.
We both went to Severn. We moved back to Annapolis after having our children. We both took time off to raise our children. And then in some discussions, we figured out that we both really had a love for the older adults. We loved working with them. We loved, in our previous work, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I was a business major. I worked in consulting in New York City, and then I worked here with Kramer and Associates. And I went back to school. I love to go to school, and I studied positive psychology, and I got my certification in positive psychology, and decided that I wanted to work with older adults. I wanted to help them create meaning and purpose after retirement, after they didn't have a family to care for anymore. A lot of people are looking for, what do I do next? It was a newsletter that was called What's Next, actually. So I was already focused on that population, maybe a little younger than a lot of our clients, but really loved helping, keeping them engaged. So for me personally, moving into this space of keeping people independent and safe in their home, it was a nice transition. I already felt a love and warmth to that age group. And that's really what we found to be almost the most important thing with this business. We can train our employees and our caregivers to be, to have the skills, but you have to have the heart for the job. It is not the same as other types of careers. And we felt like Karin and I both have the heart for the job, and so we love it, and that's why we're there, and that's what we try with our employees too.
It takes a special person to do that. And I know the caregivers that took care of my parents before they passed away, they were angels on earth. The level of care, and it's unfortunate that we live in a world where it's go, 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 go. You mentioned you were in New York, so I'm sure that was a go, 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 go type of a lifestyle. And it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to get down there to, see mom and dad after they're gone. And I say after you as the child are gone out of the life. And they really do, the caregivers really do form bonds with the caregivees as well. Now, what is your background, Karin?
So I'm a registered nurse. I have my bachelor's of science in nursing. I have spent many years doing different types of nursing, but really fell in love with that older population when I ran a rehab unit in a facility in Rockville, Maryland. And that was just my calling. I love older people. I love listening to them tell stories from 100 years ago. Literally, they'll tell me stories from when they were on a horse and buggy, and I just love listening to them. So I love that age.
The stories are great.
Yes.
Stories
Imagine what they've seen. I always say they have seen the cars first built to many wars, and they tell me all about it. Well, I love listening.
The older people today, the ones that are, we'll even say, in the 90s or maybe even the low 100s. I know there's a guy down in Arundel on the Bay, Billy Keys, who helped liberate some of the internment camps out of World War II. Wow. And he's got a little museum in his garage of, the Nazi flag and everything else. And he just celebrated, I think, 102. And he just stopped substituting teaching at South River High probably about 6 years ago. And it's just so wonderful in the stories that they can tell.
Love them.
Because let's face it, that's a generation that grew up with all sorts of stuff that we don't. We've seen an awful lot in our generation as well. But, you look, cars were new, and then
cell phones.
We blew through
computers,
through fax machines, and now we've got everything in the palm of our hand. It's pretty amazing. So now, did you guys start One You Love Homecare, or is that a larger organization?
We bought a franchise, but it was a brand new franchise out of Philadelphia. We were only the second territory to come on, but we thought, because we didn't have a background in starting a business, we thought that was a good way they helped us get through all the legal aspects of starting a company.
I'm sure there's plenty of them with
Maryland is quite, there was a lot of things that we had to get through. And with COVID, we actually started prior to COVID, but because of COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people weren't working. So it really took like a year to get through all of that licensing. But in that time, we actually used the time wisely. I actually went and got a certified nursing assistant degree from Anne Arundel Community College.
School?
I like school.
Yes.
But because I didn't have a healthcare background, I wanted to know exactly what our employees would be doing. I wanted to be able to get in there and do some of the work myself, so I could be right there with my employees. I get to know my clients really well. So I had time to do that. We met with quite a few people that had either used caregivers in the past or that had been caregivers. So we took a lot of time to really get to know this industry so we could create the company that we wanted to create.
Well, it sounds like you've really taken the model and made it your own, if you will. And I do want to interject, though. You said a franchise, and unfortunately, so many people will say, franchise is a big corporate thing. All the money's going to Philadelphia or whatever it may be. But that's not necessarily the case. With a franchise, both local people here that are working with local people, hiring local people and everything else there. And for a franchise, it's really just I look at it, and I used to own a travel agency that was a franchise, and I look at it more as a marketing expense. As you said, they've got a lot of expertise in doing this and helping you with the permits and everything else. And knowing Anne Arundel County and Maryland, you'd probably still be going through them if you didn't have the help.
Yes, they were very helpful for all of that. We don't know if But we can run the business how we see fit, and we do. We have our own way that we like to do things, and that's how we do it.
Well, what type of care does One You Love Homecare offer? And I mean, do you get into the medical? I mean, are you doing shots in people's arms if they need an administering medication, or is it more just a companion type of a?
So we provide personal and companion care. Personal care is assisting somebody in a shower or with a bed bath, helping them ambulate, taking them also to doctor's appointments we can do, taking them to get their hair done, their nails. We're called non-skilled, which means we don't give shots or pass medications or say do wound treatment.
Okay. But if somebody I'm going back to my mother's pill box on, with the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, is that something that you would like, hey, Sherry, you need to take your Tuesday pills.
Yes.
Here they are?
We can give a med reminder, absolutely.
Okay. But you're not administering.
Right. We don't manage what we call manage the medications. We can just give reminders to them.
And if you don't have usually the child of our client will put that together. Once a week, they put all the pills in your little pill box, like you're saying. But if you don't have that person, pharmacies will put it together for you. And it'll say Monday morning, Monday afternoon. So then it's still a medicine reminder for the caregiver to the adult. Mm-hmm.
You said the children typically do this. I mean, there's also a lot of seniors that have come down here to retire in the area that the children may not be here. I mean, how does that work again? Are you working with doctors and primary care doctors to develop the programs that you work with them?
We can work with physicians. The family just needs to sign off on them. There is what we call a personal health information. As long as the family allows us to be involved in that care, we can absolutely reach out to their physician and help coordinate care.
So my mom needs some in-home assistance. How does the program work? How do we start? I come to you and we probably sit down in this great conference room and lay out a plan?
Yeah, absolutely. We do very similar to what we're doing now. We talk about the needs of that family member, make sure that we're a good fit for them. We come out and I do a full assessment on them, on that client, make sure that we meet their needs. I do a physical exam on them, and I create a care of plan based on the needs of that individual client.
Okay, so you create the plan that says, hey, this is what I think your mom needs or your dad needs. And I either accept it or maybe I take it to the doctor and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And does this look okay or whatnot? Is that how?
That's how it works. And we work together as a team to figure out what is appropriate for that client. And then we go and we find a caregiver that's a good fit based on the needs of that client, the hours that they need, and also the personality of the caregiver and the client. Julianne and I spend a ton of time making a good fit between the client and the caregiver.
I can't imagine that's important because I've met where my mother was in a retirement community down in Florida. Man, I met some really cranky people that would have been a real chat. You really had to have the right personality to jump in on different people for sure.
Well, and another thing is nothing's locked in stone. Things are always changing. So Karin can always add things to that care plan, or we can reassess, or if the caregiver isn't a right fit, then we, try to find a replacement. Another thing that's great about Karin being our owner and our registered nurse is she's always doing the nursing for that client. We don't have to hire nurses to go in. Some agencies, hire nurses and then they use different people, where with us, Karin is always doing it. There's a continuity of care with her, and she does speak to doctors, and she does help with other parts of their healthcare journey at that age. So it's super helpful to have one person that really knows that client inside and out. With continuity of care really is important.
I would imagine that once you do an initial evaluation, you've got your baseline established, that as we all age, hey, I've noticed that he's favoring the one hip, and maybe we need to bring that to the attention of an orthopedist, or maybe the memory is starting to slip a little bit, and that's probably something that you and the caregivers that work for you are able to notice.
Absolutely. The caregivers get to know the client really well, and we talk all the time. And if there's any change in status, we talk and we figure out the plan for that particular client. Always. That's the beauty of it. They get to know that client.
How frequent is this care? I mean, I know I keep bringing up my mother, but I mean, toward the end of her life, she had pretty much 24/7 care. Is that something that you guys would offer?
Yes, we can provide anything from a 4-hour shift, a few days a week, up to 24 hours a day, to even a live-in who actually lives in the home with the client.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and what about somebody that just, mom's getting a little bit forgetful? Can somebody just, I'm here in Montana, and can somebody just like go in and check on her once a week or something like that? Is that something that you would sit down and say hello and hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, we actually, that is a big part of what we do, especially in the beginning when they don't need a lot of services, is we do have a 4-hour minimum because our caregivers have to get there.
Sure.
And they're, it's their need to make some money too. And then we can hire good caregivers because we know we can be able to staff them. But it's a big part of getting to know the caregiving way of life. You go in a couple days a week, you check in, you make sure they've taken their medicine, you maybe do some laundry or pick up some groceries for them, and they get to know that caregiver really well. Another thing we have is we put an iPad in our clients' homes for multiple reasons. One, it is they can use it for Zooming with family if they don't have access to that.
Great.
The caregivers can use it to clock in and out, but they don't need to. But we have this technology that is, the caregiver will play some games with the client. And in doing that, it's stimulating their mind, helping them keep active, but at the same time, it's assessing their cognitive abilities. So every month, the child gets a report as to what's going on. Is anything changing? Is their memory slipping? Their short-term memory, because that's usually the short-term memory that will go first. So it's got about 20 different games that they can play. And even if they don't have the dexterity to use it, the caregiver will help them use it. And then you can get a report on how your mom's doing or if there's any changes going on.
It's so neat to see how different things affect different people. I know there's one video that was out on YouTube at one point where there was this old man that was non-ambulatory, and he was just sort of in this little funk. And somebody turned around and put headphones on him with some music, and all of a sudden the foot starts to tap, and the smile comes up, and you sit there, and it was and music was what the button was for that man. So I think that's wonderful that you're able to turn around with technology, which I'm sure I guess not so much now. It's getting a little bit better. People are a little bit more familiar with technology. I think if you try to do it with
there's resistance sometimes, but with the caregiver there to help them, that makes it a little easier. And it actually does have a music app on it, too.
It does.
Yeah, and I didn't even think about, the Zooming calls, and that's just got to be so, to see a smiling face, to see somebody that you know, that you love, that you recognize, that maybe thousands of miles away, has just got to be huge for somebody that's...
Well, and sometimes too, like if you wanted to do like a book tape, you can use it for that. I mean, and sometimes the hesitancy is that the client doesn't have the dexterity to get that book tape going, but the caregiver can help them with that. So there are some things that make their lives better. But we've had some clients that the music, you say that about your mom or that about people, like the old man on the commercial, that they've played music. They will bring their keyboard, and it really does. Some people just really perk up with music.
Well, you never know what the little hot buttons are that get somebody. I mean, you could just trigger, Gone with the Wind, just having to show up, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my, that's, whatever it is. I know my mother, you talked about the short-term memory is first to go, and that's pretty much what I found with my mother had Alzheimer's, but and we thought early in their 50s that she'd like write a check to the phone company for $1,000 when she would go to Florida for the winter. And we thought, she was like, I'm just let them worry about it. And now we think that, okay, well, she was probably having problems writing that check and remembering to do it monthly. So, and of course the phone company loved it. Hey, we got $1,000 interest-free loan. But, and it turns out, but I know as she got older and older, she could remember running across the field on the farm when she was there with the name of the dog, where the horse was, where the barn was, and everything else. I stand up and say goodbye to her, and she can't remember my name. And it was really heartbreaking to see, and it's so wonderful to see. To me, anyhow, it was comforting to see somebody taking care of my mother. When you're talking about the people that are working with the families, okay, you all have full heads of hair, so you're not pulling your hair out, running around to all your clients by yourself. So you do have help. Who are the types of people? I mean, obviously, you've got caregivers, your help wanted people with huge hearts. And what types of employees? I mean, do you have nurses that work with you? I know you're a nurse, but I mean, are there nurses? Or are they just aides? Or does it vary depending on what the client is?
So we hire both CNAs, which are certified nursing assistants, but they don't necessarily have to be. Like Julianne said, it's about the heart. I can train them to do certain techniques or whatever skill they need for that particular client. So that's really what we look for is the heart. But we do have both. If a caregiver comes in who doesn't have a ton of experience, hands-on experience, we might put them in more of a companion type situation where they're taking the family member to get their hair done or just playing cards with them or working with the iPad with them. Not necessarily heavy skills.
Right. And I guess that would also depend on the needs of the person that's receiving the care as well there.
Well, I think what that leads to is just that each person is different. That's why we go in and do an assessment and talk to the family, talk to the client themselves. What are they looking for? Each person is different, and we create this personalized plan that's specific to them because some people do need more skills and more personal care, and some people need more companion. So I would say with all of our clients, I don't think any of their schedules or care plans look anything alike.
No.
They're all different.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Beautiful of it. Now, as far as I'm assuming bonding and insurance, that's just sort of like a standard type of a thing. Now, does Maryland, the state, license in-home caregivers? Is there a license for?
Our agency is licensed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know whether Maryland had that rule or.
Yes, Maryland has strict licensing.
And insurance and workers' comp.
And very strict. Lots of requirements.
Right. And as far as you said, mentioned taking them to doctors and stuff like that, I mean, would that be with their vehicle if they have one or the caregiver's vehicle or both? Or
both, either and both, yes.
Okay.
Caregiver can use their own or drive the clients, whatever is preferred.
Neat. That's very neat. And I guess the other thing that I mentioned with writing the checks or something like that. If somebody just needs problem paying bills, is that something that a companion care would help, or does that jump into the whole financial end of the?
We don't do finance. The caregivers do not help the client with financials.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah.
But we as an agency have found that we get very close to our clients. We're small, we're personalized, we like it that way. We're not trying to be, really big with tons of caregivers. We don't have any staff other than Karin and I and our caregivers. But we try to help them because some people are doing it on their own. Maybe they don't have children or don't have children that live close. So we've helped them with plumbing. We've helped them with getting electricians.
House cleaners.
We really have become a resource for many things. And we have we try to refer, because we want to make sure that our clients, that our older adults are protected because they're in a very vulnerable state at that age. So we want to make sure that we trust these plumbers or these electricians. And a lot of times we'll do it when our caregiver is there so that there's somebody else there that's coming. When you have a plumber come over, you have the caregiver there with you.
And that's also got to be, somewhat frightening for an elderly woman to have a plumber that that we don't know. It's jumping in. And I guess that's the beauty of being very, very small like that. Now, you said you're the only staff that you got as far as I'm going to say on the admin level here. Okay, so you're like the receptionist and the marketing director and
one of the things we heard during that year of licensing is that when a client was calling, and this was like a child, to get some information, nobody knew their case, nobody knew, they had to look up paperwork and figure out who this was and what they were calling about. Well, we know our clients really well. They trust us. So we have that connection with them, and we like that. Like that.
That's got to be huge, because if I call you up and you're going to be, okay, hey, John, this is great. I know we were just with your mom last week, and let me just pull up what happened when they were there last week. But what her general situation is.
Karin reads the caregivers have to chart. We have a mobile app that they chart on before they can clock out all these different things and make sure that they've done everything, and that if there's any changes, like Karin said earlier, our caregivers are the ones that are probably going to spot these changes because they're with them every day.
Sure.
So Karin reads those every night, what happened each day with each client. And then she can call. She's also available to our caregivers. I think actually our caregivers like working with us because we are available to them as well. If they have a question during the shift, Mrs. Jones has, looks like she's had some bruising on her legs or this or that, or, mentally seems a little different today. And that can be, a UTI or something. So our caregivers are in constant contact with Karin, who's our nurse, all day so that they feel good that they're not left alone out there to try to decide what to do. And they also feel part of a team because we've been in that. We know this client intimately. I might have worked with that client last week myself, so I know what's going on. So
that's wonderful. So the caregiver calls you, and you, as with using your nursing background, can sit there and say, well, this, and using your example there, Julianne, but that could possibly be a UTI or something like that. And here's my medical advice: drink some cranberry juice, and we'll take a look. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you're able to turn around and say, okay, we'll note this. This is what we're going to change, and we're going to look at it tomorrow. Or 3 days later or something like that, and see if we've gone back or forward or which way we need to go. That's awesome.
And if it's something that needs to be addressed right away, I absolutely take care of that and notify the family.
Karin's getting phone calls all day long from these caregivers.
No, I love that. That's like Julianne said, we're a team. And if they have a question, I'm their resource for them. And if I don't know the answer, I will get them that answer.
There's nothing wrong with that. Now, where is your basic area? You said you've got the franchise for the area. In Annapolis, Anne Arundel County. Do you go outside of the county, or? Yeah,
we can. We actually also have Howard County.
Okay.
But we haven't extended into Howard County yet. We're kind of. Like we said, we were sort of staying small, but there aren't like a lot of competitors. It's not like this franchise has somebody's bought up the whole area. But the problem is we want our caregivers to be within a driving distance to their client. We try to think about that as well when we're hiring caregivers, when we're taking on clients. If it's too far away and our caregivers are constantly getting caught in traffic or some kind of problem, it sometimes doesn't work.
Well, the commute can also kill you.
That's what I mean. The commute, yeah.
You're not sending somebody from here to Arlington to do that every day.
And we spend a lot of time on that, trying to make that fit. That's part of the fit.
Well, I kind of think that your caregivers that work for you also appreciate the fact that, well, obviously we talked about you being available to them. And I as an individual, I can probably go out and do caregiving to a degree, depending on the level of licensing and stuff like that as a person. But the resources that you bring to the table, finding clients, is one of them. The technology that's able to do that, the level of care, and again, jump back on the heart that we talked about, and having to have the right personality to do this. These people love to do what they do, and when they work with people that also share that same passion, it probably really makes for a really cohesive group.
Yeah, I think they have found partner and team, like Karin said, with us. And I think that I actually just got a text this morning from a caregiver, and she said, I just have never felt so valued before. We not only offer bonuses and special things, we've had some lunches where we invite them in to have lunch with us because we really want to get to know them, but we care about them. We want them to stay with us. We've providing loyalty to them and then in turn, they're loyal to us.
Get it back.
And
sure.
she said she's never felt so valued because I reach out to her. She reaches out to me. I've covered before for someone because she really needed to get to a meeting just for 2 hours. And I'm like, you know what? I want you to make that meeting. So I'm going to cover for you for those 2 hours. And she said, I've never had someone offer to do that. Okay. So it's a team approach.
Do you have any male caregivers?
Any what?
Any male caregivers?
We do have some on our roster, yes.
I know typically it's a sort of a female-dominated type of a thing.
There are men who do caregiving, absolutely.
Well, I know some of the best nurses that I've met are male.
And sometimes you need some strength.
Yes.
Sometimes you need that extra strength.
Yes, you do. So yes, we do.
True. You think of the older person that weighs, 80 pounds or something like that. Sounds like pretty minuscule, but you try to pick it up, and it's a different story there.
Exactly.
Now, as far as if somebody wanted to work for you, are you looking for caregivers? Is that sort of an always type of a thing as the business grows? What's the best way to do that?
We're always hiring. We always are interviewing, meeting with caregivers. They reach out to us. Sometimes we find caregivers through other caregivers. That happens a lot because our caregiver, like the one that said she's so valued, they have friends that do the same work, and then they reach out to us. And we offer referral bonuses and things like that if they bring in other caregivers that end up working out and working for us. So it is an ongoing process with the caregivers because things are changing in their lives. We have some that are in school. They're going back for nursing degrees and things, but they love working for us and with us that they've stayed, and they still work weekends and things with us. So it's been great. The market has changed, a little. It's gotten much better. It was hard for a while with the pandemic.
Sure.
Staffing was challenging, but now, it's turned around.
Well, I would think that with everybody getting vaccinated and through the pandemic and everything else, and it had to be so challenging. I mean, because typically with a caregiver, there's no 6 feet.
Oh no!
You're up close and personal.
Yep.
Your website is oneyoulovehomecare.com, and that one is spelled out ONE, the word you, not the letter U. We're not like a teenager here, but
texting, right?
oneyoulovehomecare.com, and you can just put in Annapolis, and that will bring you right to Karin and Julianne to see. Now, if I want to work with you as a client, again, same thing. Is that where the best starting place is at your website? And then that arranges for and I'm assuming to onboard clients, because children can be anywhere in the world. It can be virtual, Zoom, telephone, in person.
Yeah. We usually go out to the client's home because they can't always get here into our office. So that's usually how it works. And like even yesterday, we had one, two of the children were on the phone. They wanted to listen in, and one of the children were there with the parent. So we've done it all, I think. And we make it work for our clients.
What's the biggest challenge you guys have had?
Pandemic.
Yeah, I would say the pandemic has been challenging.
The vaccination status was hard, as well as providing PPE, because we've provided all that PPE. Can you think of anything else?
I think you hit it.
And staffing. Staffing during the pandemic.
Yeah, early on in that pandemic was challenging.
Yeah. Hey, here's a sort of a bizarre off-the-wall question. And I remember where my mother was down in Florida, and they got the hurricanes that come through. They did a wonderful job of evacuating the complex. But what happens if there was some kind of an emergency? Say you've got a client down in Shadyside and the electricity has now been out for 3 days. I'm assuming you're not bringing clients into your homes and the spare bedrooms, but how would you guys be a part of that?
That's a great question. One of the things that I do when I do an assessment is I do an emergency preparedness plan. And in that plan, we determine where that client would go should there be emergency where they need to actually evacuate from their home. If it's safe for them to be in the home, then I have to decide if, let's say, the natural disaster occurred and I could only get certain caregivers to certain clients, I determine which clients get priority.
Okay.
So that's how it's determined. And that is determined upon that assessment.
Okay, great. Okay, so if somebody is going to be out for a couple days, you can get them moved into a facility that
they would yes,
whatever. You got to figure out how
they would go to a facility, Red Cross. They may have to go to the local hospital. It just depends on that particular client situation. If they have a family member close by, we would transfer them to the family member's home.
That's great. Without power or something like that, and you mentioned you get plumbers and all that kind of stuff. What about a generator to power a house? Would that be something that you guys would facilitate, or is that not really?
We could get a company to come out and generate.
And that's in coordination with the family.
We could do that. We could coordinate that. Absolutely.
We can get mom in a hotel room for the night. And we'll get an electrician out tomorrow, and
we can help coordinate that.
It's not part of our job necessarily, but we just care about them.
Well, you don't sound like you don't sound like you guys are all that whole work to job.
No, but we just care about them, and we just don't want anything to happen.
We love our clients.
We want to do what they need. What we can to help, as much as we can to help. We try to do that. So.
What's the gender balance on your clients? Male, female, or heavy female? Have any idea?
I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, or maybe even more male.
It may be more, yeah.
Who's easier
And
to
some
take care of?
couples, some to couples too.
Who's easier to take care of? That's a great question.
They all have their own personality.
Yes. We love them all.
Yeah, they all have their very distinct personalities, but yeah. And sometimes it's a couple, sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
Right,
We do
right.
take care
Yeah.
of couples, yeah.
That's beautiful when you got a couple that can age together and with just a little bit of help. And I guess that's that whole we get by with a little help from our friends, you know.
Well, and you'd be amazed at the ages of people that are still living in their home. They just want to stay home, and they've lived there, 50 years, like Karin said, and they have this beautiful view, and they just want to age safely and independently in their home. And so, to do that, they need somebody to come in and help.
And that's the biggest thing. We want to keep them safe. I mean, that's exactly what you said. That's what we need. To keep those family members safe.
And I totally get that. You've established your roots. I mean, you're a tree. You've grown there.
Yeah.
And
Part of Karin's assessment is a safety of the home and what types of safety features are in the home. And she'll suggest certain things that might make things better. And we have companies that we can work with that'll come in and create more safe. When you talk about it,
Clear pathways, handrails, bathroom safety, all those things I look when I go in and do an assessment.
I'd imagine, hey, you're not dining in the dining room. Why don't we convert this to a bedroom and keep you all on one level?
Yes, one level. Clear pathways are a big one. Handrails, handheld shower, a shower chair, all of those things, and we can help facilitate those.
I need those. I slip way too often. It's like, whoa, what's going on?
Well, fall prevention is such a huge thing in this business. I mean, we just want to keep them from falling because that can really change their lives.
Yes.
Well, it really has, and you look at the way that concussions have sort of come to the forefront, and with the NFL, and I mean, there's specific medical practices. I know Dr. Graw had started, the concussion something at Nighttime Pediatrics before he had sold it out, but a head fall or a head hit.
Or breaking a hip.
His hip is a big one.
They break hips when they fall, and then they're in the hospital, and then they lose weight, and then they are depressed because they're in the hospital, and it's really detrimental to their overall health to fall.
Yeah, no, that's probably your biggest, the biggest fear, slip and falls.
And then, if you have a carpet on top of a carpet, then the edges come up.
Or the walker gets stuck on it and then they tumble.
We really try to focus on that. We try to train our caregivers specifically to fall prevention, helping that.
That's really great because you guys have seen it all and done it all, if you will, so you know what to look for. And as a child, I don't know that I would even think about that. It's like, okay, yeah, well, let's get a Stairmaster.
Well, the equipment looks a lot better too. The handrails are beautiful. They match your other hardware.
They're much nicer than they used to be 20 years ago.
It's beautiful. You can get your whole house outfitted and nobody would even know that you're, an older adult and have a handrail there.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations to you both for starting this. Folks that are interested in perhaps working here, if you've got a big heart, if you don't have a big heart, don't worry about it. That's the big primary thing that you're going to have. You want to go to oneyoulovehomecare.com, and one is spelled out ONE, and see if this might be a company that you might like to work for. It sounds to me like you value your employees as much as you value your clients, which is always a great position to be in when you're working there. And if you do have an aging parent, or somebody that you love that needs some assistance to give you and them both peace of mind, I think it's probably makes sense to go check it out as well. Again, two local folks here, based right in Annapolis, lived here all their lives, and except for that brief stint in New York for you, Julianne. But it's know the area, know the people, and it's almost like family. It really is. And I congratulations on muscling it through COVID. And I really do like the concept of, with you, Karin, going in and doing the assessment and the availability of you. I mean, it's all too easy to have a hierarchy of a corporate thing. And yes, what's the client number, please? I don't see that in the, and I get the feeling that I'm going to call you up and you're going to be, oh yeah, John, hey, how you doing? We were just down at Rebecca's house and she seems to be doing good. And let me just check. Oh yeah, yep, she was good. She was, and that's really what I think today's baby boomers are a little bit younger that have aging parents are looking for. And
yeah, I think most of our clients come from referrals, which I think says a lot for us, that they've been somebody that's used our services and really been happy and referred it to a friend.
Plus, you save on the advertising budget. but absolutely, no, the referrals are definitely the way to go because, that just says that you've got a lot of happy clients that are more than happy to do it. Well, the website is oneyoulovehomecare.com. And again, since it is a franchise, that's probably a corporate type of a thing. And you can also probably give you a call, right?
Yes, thank you. Our phone number is 1-800-410-3818, or my cell phone is 443-875-8714.
Thank you guys very much for today. I appreciate the chance to learn about One You Love Homecare. I didn't know about it, and I do now, and I think it's a great and needed service, especially as everybody else except for me is getting older and and may need help at some point in time. So thank you guys very much, and congratulations.
Thank you, John. Appreciate this.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.